A young mother, pushing her baby daughter in a stroller, stepped into a crosswalk with the right-of-way. A few seconds later, both of them were lying on the ground, struck by a speeding car. And the teenager behind the wheel would soon become one of the most controversial names on the internet, Cameron Herrin. In this video, we're going to walk, step by step, through the case of Cameron Herrin, the crash, the investigation, the court drama, and the strange online obsession that followed. This is a true crime story about real people, real pain, and real consequences. Part 1. The morning of the crash. Our story begins in Tampa, Florida. Tampa is a busy city on Florida's west coast, known for its waterfront views, warm weather, and long scenic roads. One of those roads is Bayshore Boulevard, a wide, beautiful stretch right along the water. Locals know it well. Joggers, cyclists, parents with strollers. It's a place where people live their everyday lives. On May 23, 2018, around 11 a.m., 24-year-old Jessica Reisinger-Rapinolt. She was visiting from Ohio with her family. Jessica was a young mother, described by those who knew her as kind, hardworking, and deeply devoted to her daughter. Her baby girl, 21-month-old Lilia, was in a stroller in front of her as they walked along Bayshore Boulevard. Around the same time, another young person was also on Bayshore, 18-year-old Cameron Herrin. He was driving a black Ford Mustang. It was actually a graduation gift, a powerful sports car for a teenager who had just finished high school. In the passenger seat sat his friend, while another friend drove a gold Nissan alongside them. According to witnesses, the two cars weren't just cruising, they were moving fast. People later described them as racing, accelerating, side by side, down this public road right next to pedestrians. Investigators would later estimate that Cameron's Mustang hit speeds around 100 kilometers per hour or more on a road where the speed limit was significantly lower. As Jessica approached a crosswalk, she did what any careful person would do. She had the right-of-way. She began to cross, pushing baby Lilia in front of her in the stroller. At that same moment, Cameron Herrin's Mustang was speeding down Bayshore. In those few seconds, everything lined up in the worst possible way. Witnesses recalled seeing the car coming far too fast. Some would later say they knew something bad was going to happen the moment they saw the vehicles racing. Then, it happened. The black Mustang hit Jessica and Lilia. Part 2. The immediate aftermath. When police arrived at the scene, they found what witnesses had described: a chaotic, heartbreaking situation. The Mustang had severe damage. The stroller was destroyed. Pedestrians were shaken, traumatized. Some had seen the impact directly. Others heard the sound and turned to see the aftermath. Officers quickly identified the drivers involved. Cameron Herrin, just 18, was visibly distressed. The other driver, his friend in the gold Nissan, was also stopped by police. None of this was a hit and run. They didn't flee, but staying at the scene didn't change what had already happened. As paramedics worked and police began measuring skid marks and collecting evidence, one thing became increasingly clear. This wasn't just an accident. The speeds involved, the presence of two cars side by side, the eyewitness accounts, all of it pointed toward reckless driving. And not just reckless driving in general, but racing on a public road. Local news in Tampa began covering the story heavily. A young visiting mother and her baby tilled on a beautiful popular boulevard. A recent high school graduate in a Mustang. The community reaction was immediate: sadness, anger, and one big question: how could this happen? And what would be done about it? Part 3. Who is Cameron Herrin? To understand this case, we have to spend a moment on who Cameron Herrin was before the crash. Born in 1999, Cameron grew up in what many would consider a stable middle-class or upper-middle-class environment. His family wasn't chaotic or criminal. He wasn't known as a violent person. In photos, he looks like a normal, clean-cut American teenager. He had friends. He went to school. He had a bright future as far as most people could see. His parents had worked hard, and one of the symbols of their success, or their love, was that Ford Mustang. A fast car, gifted to a young man who likely didn't fully understand just how deadly that combination of youth and horsepower can be. That detail, the Mustang as a graduation gift, would later become symbolic for many people following the case. But even though Cameron had no violent criminal history, the law does not measure only intentions. It also measures actions, choices, and consequences. And on that morning, in May 2018, his choices led to the death of a mother and a child. Part 4. The charges. After investigating the crash, police and prosecutors in Tampa faced a decision. What should Cameron Herrin and the other driver be charged with? This wasn't a simple traffic ticket. 2 people had died. There was evidence of racing. There were high speeds. There were multiple witnesses. The question became, was this just a tragic accident, or was it criminal? Prosecutors decided to charge Cameron Herrin with multiple counts, including vehicular homicide, essentially causing the death of another person through reckless operation of a vehicle. He was also charged in connection with illegal street racing. Vehicular homicide is serious. It recognizes something very important. You might not leave your house intending to kill someone, but if you choose to drive in an extremely dangerous way, the law can still hold you responsible when people die. Cameron was arrested. Court dates were set. Meanwhile, the families of Jessica and little Lilia were left to navigate their grief, and a legal system that can feel slow, even when everyone knows tragedy has already happened. Part 5. The family of the victims. Before we go any further with legal details, it's important to remember who this case is truly about. Not about a car, not about a sentence, not about internet opinions. It's about a young woman and her baby girl. Jessica's family described her as loving, dedicated, and responsible. She was out that day simply taking a walk with her child, something millions of parents do every day. They had traveled from Ohio to Florida, probably expecting a normal visit, maybe some sun, some family time, memories to look back on years later. Instead, what they got was a phone call every family dreads. The kind of call that doesn't just break your heart once, but keeps breaking it over and over again, every time you remember the details. During later court hearings, Jessica's family would talk about what was lost. Jessica's future as a mother, a wife, a daughter, a friend. Lilia's entire future, school, birthdays, relationships, a whole life that would never happen. This is the weight behind the legal words vehicular homicide. Behind every charge are human beings whose lives cannot be restored. Part 6. The legal process and plea. As the case moved forward, Cameron Herrin's lawyers had to make strategic choices. One of the biggest decisions in any serious criminal case is this: do you go to trial, or do you accept a plea? Deal? A trial would mean calling witnesses, showing crash reconstruction, playing any available footage, cross-examinations, and asking a jury to decide whether Cameron was guilty and what should happen to him. A plea deal, on the other hand, means admitting guilt in exchange for some understanding about the possible sentencing range. In 2021, Cameron Herrin pleaded guilty to 2 counts of vehicular homicide and related charges. This was a key moment. He did not argue that he was innocent of causing the deaths. He did not claim that the crash was unavoidable. He accepted legal responsibility, though his defense would try to argue for a lighter sentence. By pleading guilty, Cameron avoided a full jury trial, but that did not mean he would avoid a harsh punishment. The next crucial step was the sentencing hearing, and that's where emotions and opinions from both sides came fully into view. Part 7. The sentencing hearing. Sentencing hearings in cases like this are often intense. The judge listens to both sides, the prosecution and the defense. Victim impact statements are read. the defendant's background is discussed. The goal is to help the judge decide how severe the punishment should be within the limits of the law. On one side, prosecutors argued that Cameron's behavior was extremely reckless. He had been racing on a public road in broad daylight. He knew or should have known that pedestrians used Bayshore Boulevard. 2 people were dead, a child. For the prosecution, anything less than a strong sentence would send the wrong message about street racing and reckless driving. On the other side, the defense presented the image of a young man with no prior criminal record. They highlighted his age, his remorse, his background, and argued that he did not intend to kill anyone. They asked the judge to show leniency, suggesting that a long prison sentence for a teenager with no violent history was not necessary to protect society. Then, there were the victim impact statements. These are some of the most powerful moments in any courtroom. Family members stand up and speak directly about what the crime has done to their lives. They are not just statistics or names on a paper. They are real people describing real pain. Jessica's family spoke about the hole left in their lives, the birthdays that would never be celebrated, the holidays that would never be shared, the empty seats at the table. They asked the court for justice, for accountability, for a sentence that reflected the magnitude of the loss. The judge listened to everyone. Then, in April 2021, the sentence was announced. Part 8, the sentence. The courtroom was silent when the judge read the sentence. For the deaths of Jessica and Lilia, and for his role in illegal street racing, Cameron Herrin was sentenced to 24 years in prison. 24 years. For some, this felt like justice. For others, it felt too harsh for an 18-year-old first-time offender. The reaction was immediate, emotional, and deeply divided. The judge, however, justified the decision by focusing on the severity of the crime. 2 lives were lost. The behavior leading up to the crash was not a minor mistake. It was extreme recklessness on a public road. The message was clear. Treat the streets like a racetrack, and people die. You can go to prison for many years. After the sentencing, Cameron was taken into custody to begin serving his time. For many cases, this is where the story would slowly fade from public attention. But in the case of Cameron Herrin, that's not what happened. Part 9, the social media explosion. After the sentencing, something strange began to happen online. Clips from the courtroom, photos of Cameron, and short videos started spreading on platforms like TikTok and Twitter. People saw a young man, pale, emotional, in a suit, with tears in his eyes, being led away to spend 24 years in prison. But instead of focusing on the victims, many comments focused on something else: his face. Some users began calling him too handsome for prison. Others made fan edits, slow-motion videos with sad music, dramatic captions like, "He didn't deserve this," and comments about his looks rather than his actions. Suddenly, Cameron Herrin was trending. There were accounts created just to post about him. Some claimed to be in love with him. Others pushed conspiracy theories that the sentence was a setup or that he was being punished because of his appearance or background. Meanwhile, the families of Jessica and Lilia were still breathing. They woke up each day with the reality that their loved ones were gone. But on the internet, a portion of the world was treating the person responsible as some kind of tragic, romantic figure. This raised disturbing questions. Why do some people feel sympathy mainly when the accused is young and attractive? Why do victims, especially women and children, get forgotten while the focus shifts to the sad story of the offender? And what does it say about us as a society when a convicted killer gets a fan base? The handsome killer phenomenon. The online reaction to Cameron Herrin is part of a larger pattern we've seen in true crime culture. Over and over again, when a criminal is young, conventionally attractive, or looks innocent, some people romanticize them. We saw it with other cases too. People writing love letters to serial killers in prison. Fan accounts for men who committed horrific crimes, simply because they looked good in a mugshot. In Cameron's case, this became extreme. Some fans insisted he was innocent, despite his guilty plea. Others argued that the sentence was unfair purely because he looked like a nice boy from a good family. Many of them barely mentioned Jessica or Lilia. This is where true crime crosses into something darker. When we start caring more about how sad it is that a young man lost his freedom, than about how devastating it is that a mother and baby lost their lives. Lost perspective. It's understandable to feel sympathy for someone who made a terrible mistake at a young age. It's human to recognize that multiple lives can be ruined by one moment of bad judgment. But sympathy for a defendant should never erase empathy for the victims. And it should never turn into fandom. Part 11. Appeals and ongoing debate. After his sentencing, Cameron Herrin's legal team explored options for appeal and reduction of his sentence. They argued that 24 years was excessive for an 18-year-old with no prior criminal record, and that other similar cases had resulted in shorter sentences. Some members of the public agreed. They felt that while he absolutely deserved punishment, the length of the sentence seemed more like a message to society than an individually tailored punishment. On the other hand, many people, including supporters of the victim's family, argued that this is exactly the kind of message that needs to be sent. Street racing and reckless driving kill people every year. If the courts treat these as minor accidents, then nothing changes, and more families suffer. Over time, the intense online hype around Cameron started to quiet down. But the debates remained. How do we balance accountability with the possibility of rehabilitation? How do we handle cases where the defendant is young and remorseful, but the harm they caused is irreversible? Part 12. The human side of the story. When we strip away the noise, the social media edits, the hashtags, the arguments, we are left with something simple and heartbreaking. One morning, a mother took her baby for a walk. She followed the rules. She crossed at a crosswalk. She did nothing wrong. And she died because someone else wanted to feel the thrill of speed. Cameron Herrin will likely spend a large portion of his life behind bars. He will have years to think about that day, to relive those seconds, to know that his choices cost two people their lives. For Jessica and Lilia, there are no second chances, no appeals, no early release. Their story ended on Bayshore Boulevard. And for us, as viewers of true crime, there is a lesson here. Real crimes are not movies. These are not characters. When we talk about handsome killers or share edits of crying defendants, we should always remember who is missing from those clips. The victims. Part 13. The bigger message. This case is a harsh reminder of how fragile life is, and how a few seconds of reckless behavior on the road can destroy multiple families. If there is anything to take from the story of Cameron Herrin, it should not be fascination with his appearance or his tears in court. Understanding that driving is never just about you. Every time you get behind the wheel, you are responsible not only for your own life, but for the lives of everyone around you. The jogger on the sidewalk, the kid on a bicycle, the mother pushing a stroller. Speeding, racing, and showing off in a car may feel exciting in the moment. But the risk is not just a ticket or a crash you walk away from. The risk is that you don't walk away, or worse, someone else doesn't. The story of Cameron Herrin is tragic on every level. A young man will spend years in prison. A family lost a daughter and a granddaughter. And the rest of us are left asking, what are we really doing when we turn someone who killed two people into an online celebrity? As you finish this video and go back to your day, remember Jessica and Lilia. Remember that their lives ended not because of fate or chance, but because of a choice that was made behind the wheel. Bad luck, but because of a choice to race on a public road. And the next time you get in a car or see someone else driving recklessly, think about this case. Think about Bayshore Boulevard. Think about a stroller in a crosswalk. Real true crime is not entertainment for the sake of it. It's a mirror. showing us what can happen when we forget how much power we hold in our hands every time we turn a key and press the gas pedal.